For our dinner briefing tonight. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Apologize for the lateness of the hour and the time to start. First, we're going to ask Marie if she will tell us any questions or comments, and after you see the consent agenda Q&As in front of you tonight. And then the next question that I would have is about consent items. So if you could help us, Marie, start us off.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. And you have before you the questions, and they were emailed to you late this evening as well. And we've had a chance, Mr. Winston, I don't know if you had any additional ones, but we had a chance to review some with him earlier, but.
I'm good, thank you.
Thank you. I checked in with several of you earlier too, but does anybody else have any additional questions?
Are there additional questions on the consent agenda items? Okay, so let's go ahead and start off with the idea that I'm sorry, Ms. Watlington.
Right, the follow-up, yeah, we're checking on it, whether council has authority or not to require that for the board. Yes, thank you.
Okay, then the next question I have is on the consent agenda, are there any staff deferrals? 72 staff. And are there any items that the council would like to have a comment about before approval? Are there any items that the council would like to have for a separate vote? Okay, hearing that, we're done. Thank you very much. Really
Thank you.
appreciate that. Mr. Jones, what are we doing next?
So, thank you, Mayor and members of council. Tonight, what we have lined up is a continuation of the 2020 legislative agenda, and that discussion will be led by Dana Fenton and both of our co-chairs of the Intergovernmental Relations Committee will also help us through that conversation. There was a question at the annual strategy meeting about the circular economy, so we have a sustainability and resiliency update. There are several items that are on the agenda tonight that will be covered during that update. And then in April, you will have an ordinance before you that deals with stormwater pollution control. So we thought it would be good to at least introduce the concept to you tonight. So Mayor, if there aren't any questions, I can turn this over to Dana.
All right, Mr. Fenton.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. For the record, my name is Dana Fenton. I'm the city's Intergovernmental Relations Manager. Here tonight to present the proposed agendas and that are committed to you by the Intergovernmental Relations Committee. The committee approved the agendas on January 27th, and as you all will recall, just a few weeks ago, there was discussion here in the strategy session about those agendas. And tonight, after the presentation during your business meeting, the committee is asking for adoption of the proposed agendas. Moving on to the federal legislative agenda, the U.S. Congress is at work now, and they are focused on budgetary and infrastructure issues. Just a few weeks ago, the President released his FY 2021 budget recommendations. And as usual, it's sort of a mix of the good and not so good. We'll get into those in the next few slides. In the meantime, both the White House and the leadership of the House of Representatives have released their long-term infrastructure funding initiatives, and we'll talk a little bit about that and how those impact a couple or a few of your legislative priorities. The first recommended priority coming to you from the committee is for affordable housing. And this is the same position statement as it was in your 2019 federal legislative agenda. And the federal position focuses upon appropriations that you utilize to further the city's affordable housing framework of expanding and preserving the supply of affordable housing. I'm pleased to report to you tonight that last year the Congress did enact a budget that increases funding for both the Community Development Block Grant and Home Investment Partnership programs by $100 million each. That's about roughly a 3% increase for CDBG and 8% for the home program. That's good news. The not so good news is that the President is recommending that these programs be eliminated in their entirety in the FY 2021 budget, so your voice will be needed again this year to keep those budgets intact. The second position has to do with the Urban Area Security Initiative. This program prepares high-density, high-urban areas to prepare for, mitigate against, and respond to acts of terrorism. The 10-county region around Charlotte, of which we are a part, of course, has received funding from this program every year since it was established back in 2004. We found out last year, though, that our rankings relative to other metropolitan regions slipped, and we were not eligible for any further funding. When we learned about this last year, we immediately set to work with our partner counties in the region, the State Department of Emergency Management, that is the North Carolina State Department of Emergency Management, the federal delegation, and of course the Federal Emergency Management Administration had meetings, tried to get explanations as to why we slipped. Didn't seem to get a lot of satisfaction, so we engaged our delegation on that very issue. And right now, I learned today that the Office of Congresswoman Adams has agreed, as made efforts to get this to be heard directly by the House Appropriations Committee. Instead of her as one voice or just a few voices in the area trying to get satisfaction, it will now be a committee responsibility. Another concern in this area, the President has proposed reducing funding for this program nationwide by 36%, more than a third. So that's going to be an additional hurdle we'll have to face this year. Comprehensive immigration reform. This is a proposed position for the program, and it's been greatly informed by the discussions you had last year with the federal delegation in Washington, and also by the recommendations of the Immigrant Community Committee that several members of council served on and that Mr. Eggleston served as chairman of. Finally, transportation and infrastructure. A few things here I'd like to point out to you. The transit position is one that has also been adopted by the Metropolitan Transit Commission. So it's symbolic of the unity between the city, the towns, and the county on the need to implement finally the 2030 transit plan. Under the airport, highways, and passenger rail, the airport continues working with the Federal Aviation Administration to secure funding for the 4th parallel runway. And on the last point on modernized sustainable infrastructure, we'd like to point out that a lot of facets of what you find in a sustainable economy and smart cities initiatives are being incorporated into various infrastructure initiative bills that the Congress is considering. And I think we could see some action on some of those later this year. Transitioning, Mayor, to the 2020 state legislative agenda. In about 4 weeks from now, the General Assembly will reconvene, and they're going to try to adjourn this year in June. And traditionally, the General Assembly has limited the type of legislation that can be considered in the short session for the pure and simple reason that they just want to get out of Raleigh as soon as they can and set to work on other things that are important to them. And those traditional limitations are in place for this session. And due to those limitations, we have traditionally focused our legislative agenda on 3 things: finishing what was started in a long session, playing defense, and relationship building. So the first position under the affordable housing in the state legislative agenda is affordable housing. This is the same position statement as was used last year. There are 2 parts to this initiative. There's really two legislative initiatives here we're talking about. One is something we started last year. It was something that was put into a bill, the municipal omnibus bill that passed the House and is before the Senate this year, so it's eligible. And this is the bill that would enable you to provide relocation assistance and rental subsidies to persons of both low and moderate incomes. Again, that is before the Senate this year. The second one is an item that was brought to the committee last week from the department, 2 different departments, Planning, Design, and Development, and Housing and Neighborhood Services. The intention is to incentivize private developers to incorporate affordable housing into their project plans by securing local authority for the general fund to reimburse developers for some of their costs, such as permitting fees and water and sewer connection and capacity fees. The rationale is that by reimbursing developers for some of these costs, then the projects will become more financially doable. And the second one here is local control. This is a statement that you had discussion on at the February 3rd strategy session, and the intent here is to start a discussion with the General Assembly about this topic. Moving on to minimum housing standards in North Carolina search and rescue teams. Both of these were items that were in your 2019 legislative agendas. They're both eligible for consideration this year. The first one, on minimum housing standards, arose from the Lake Arbor situation where we do not have the authority to require the removal and remediation of mold. And the second one has to do with funding for North Carolina search and rescue teams. Under the search and rescue teams, the funding for this program, the recurring funding of this program, was approved by the General Assembly in their budget. However, it's been caught in the standoff between the governor and the General Assembly over other parts of the budget or other things that are not in the budget. Just getting back to the minimum housing standards real quick, I neglected to mention that this legislation, too, is eligible for consideration in 2020. And the next steps, Mayor, Council, after adoption in 2 weeks from now, you'll be in Washington For the congressional briefings, we're working to schedule those for Wednesday, March 11th. And the night before, we'll have a preview of those briefings with our federal lobbyists starting at around 6 p.m. We will get to you your briefing booklets and more information about the times of the meetings and things like that, for especially when we need to start, because of the Washington traffic the way it is, it's if you think Charlotte traffic is tough, Washington is that much tougher. So we have everything timed to when you need to be lined up to go. The 2020 state legislative agenda, the briefing has been scheduled with the Mecklenburg delegation for Tuesday, April 14th. We'll be holding that at the Mint Museum. And let me just say up front, we're not going to incur any additional cost for having it there because we do have an agreement to be able to rent a room for the same as what we pay here. And then finally, again, the General Assembly comes back on April 28th, and we expect them to be gone sometime in June. Mayor, I'd be glad to stand for any questions that you may have, and I also have department resources here with me in case you need to engage in deeper discussion. Thank you.
So I want to recognize the committee co-chairs, Mr. Winston and Mr. Bakari. Mr. Bakari.
Thanks. Yeah. So again, and thanks to everyone who's played a role in getting us to this point. A lot of different hands have behind the scenes created another great option for us from an agenda perspective. Two things I'd mention that have changed in recent times that you may or may not have heard of, and they're both on the state legislative agenda. One, many of you may not have heard at all something that came to committee for the first time if you are not on the Intergovernmental Relations Committee last week. It was a bit of an opportunistic timing topic where I think you saw it listed there. Dana, if you can go back to that one. It's around affordable housing. Actually, you only had it at a high level. It's the affordable housing one, but it was particular about going from, let's say, 20% to 10% requirements that we have on the mix of affordable units so that we have the ability to have more flexibility in finding the best deals that maximize the number of houses. While that was presented to us by staff last week, we've since learned, and after we voted it out of committee, we've since learned that while still a good idea, there are more conversations that need to be had on that with other parties, both locally and statewide, that could be impacted. So while we still believe that ultimately that is an outcome that would be more effective for us as a city in affordable housing, we do also believe that there are a lot more implications that could exist. Therefore, I spoke with staff today, and they believe that us putting this in a parking lot for now and not putting it on the formal agenda would be the best course of action given these conversations we need to have. The other one, and I'll let my other co-chair discuss this as well, around the home rule item, I would just mention that we received a note from one of our committee members. Again, the vote to get this out of committee was 3-2, and Council Member Mitchell, one of the three, who still likes this conversation point, has sent a note to the committee saying he's had further conversations, and while he can't be with us tonight, he doesn't believe this is the optimal time to move forward with that. So again, it's here. It's been moved out of committee at that point, but one of those three votes said that. So I think that's the relevant information for everyone to know and changes that have occurred since we've spoken as a full council.
Okay. Mr. Winston.
I think my co-chair did a great job of summing up the work that we did in committee, so I'll defer to any conversation that the council is going to have around the items.
Mr. Driggs.
Has the full council been briefed on the whole affordable housing issue? I'm not sure I'm aware of all of the ins and outs.
Well, yeah, and that's a separate item that honestly I need to just mention to staff, in that when we discussed this last week in committee and we voted it out, we said firmly that it was not acceptable for the rest of council to find out about this tonight for the first time. And I know things have changed, and we're now recommending to table it and not move forward with it right now. But tabling that entire, are we just tabling that piece?
There are two sections of that.
Just the second piece then. So the first piece, I think we've gotten some updates. It's the carry-on support that we've done year over year. The second piece was net new. that won't be going forward, but everyone was supposed to have gotten an update last week on it, and I don't know that that happened.
Mr. Driggs, yes.
Mayor? What are we voting on tonight?
Tonight, we're voting on the entire thing, but I think the recommendation, given the changes we've experienced over the last couple days and week, would be to only push forth the first part of that, the part that's year over year the same, and the second part would be not to move it forward and table that until the conversations are had that are necessary to bring it back together.
So we will vote on a slightly modified version of this.
I think that would be staff and our recommendation based on what we've learned, yes.
All right, local control. The only thing I'll say about that is we have in here a couple of good examples, minimum housing standard, of how we tackle the local control issue, which is we identify specific areas where the existing state control of municipalities inhibits us from doing a particular thing. But the truth is we are a Dillon Rule state, and it just feels to me, if I'm in the General Assembly and somebody walks in and says we want more local control, I don't even know how to react to that. I'm not sure, what action that indicates. So I would prefer for us not to do something so fundamental that goes right to the sort of way the state is organized, and to identify those particular things in local control that, again, we need from them in order to accomplish what we want to do.
I want to, let's take these one at a time, because I want to make sure, on the affordable housing portion, what I heard you say is the addition of the word moderate income persons was inserted into that, and that requires us to deal with the, starting at moderate income persons for displacement assistance and gentrification mitigation was something that we have added that's different than the prior year. The second part of what I heard you say is that you're recommending that it be tabled, and my understanding is that we do want more tools to make it possible for our framework. We can't construct our way out of this issue that's growing every day. So I would like to suggest that what we do is actually look at what those ideas are and ask the Committee on Great Neighborhoods to figure out how that works with the framework that we have that's already been referred to them for an assessment and evaluation. 2 years ago, we thought NOAAs were going to be the easiest thing in the whole wide world. We just go out and get them, renovate them, and everything would happen. And that has not happened. And so we need more additional tools. So I would prefer not to table, but to actually, and if the council's willing, to refer that section to the Great Neighborhoods Committee to determine how it might best work. We've got people that are coming in and they're saying, if you would help us out, and this is kind of a new market for us. We don't have an entree into the market of people that are building market rate, and they just need perhaps some encouragement for development to make something happen, whether it's helping with their petition for the building permitting, whether or not it's helping with how they how we're zoning, and until we get the comprehensive plan that allows us to build duplexes and triplexes or quadplexes, we need more tools. So I would ask that the council consider referring that to the Great Neighborhoods Committee to put it in a framework so that we can figure out how that will work.
I just
and
conferred.
it will also include having our advocates and our other folks that perhaps aren't always advocates to be able to come in and help us move this along. But we need the tools.
I just conferred with my co-chair. We're both in support of that idea as well.
So I think, Mr. Driggs, what I'd like to see is that we restate the affordable housing one in that context.
Mayor, if I may, I'm all in favor of that. I just want to be clear about what we're doing tonight.
Yes,
because we
that's
do have
what
an action
I'm
item
I'm
tonight.
with you.
And again, we need to understand. I
Yes.
think that's a good idea because, frankly, I'm not informed enough about the issues on that one to want to do anything about it tonight.
Thank you.
Got a procedural question.
Yes?
For the purposes of getting to where we're going tonight, ultimately, we need to make individual motions for amendments to the draft agenda and then vote on the amended draft agenda?
Yes.
Okay.
If everybody agrees to it, that's the way it'll motion with those amendments. Now, in the second part about the local control, yes. Okay, affordable housing, Ms. Watlington.
I just want to make sure, as I'm reading this policy question here, does this open the door for us to have some other policy discussions or about affordable housing as it relates to how we fund any partner, whether it's a land trust or whatever it is? I know there's also this conversation around source of income discrimination, elimination, there's work going on with that. So my question is, this particular policy question, is it only specific to the language around lowering the threshold to 10% from 20, or does this policy question encompass all of those potential?
This policy encompasses everything that we've been doing and what we ought to try to do.
Okay.
And that she's referring to the referral that we've made on the assessment of our framework that's before you on somewhere on your stack of paper. And so that referral is being made. Okay? Any other questions on affordable housing before we move to local control? Okay. All right. Under local control, where do we stand? I'm just going to say I've got Mr. Mitchell's letter saying that, you know, he believes that it should be included to table. It's my request to continue the discussions, but not included in the existing adoption tonight. So, Mr. Winston.
Yeah, so just to actually clarify on something Mr. Driggs said is actually we have elements in this state of being both a home and a Dillon rule state. We are a home rule state. We can do pretty much anything that we want, although what the legislature can do is preempt, and that's often what they do, right? So, and the rights that we have are given by the legislature. So in certain ways, we're tighter than Dillon rule state. So we have elements of kind of all of the above, which is one of the reasons why governing in North Carolina is a unique beast from other states and other municipalities. My intent around this item on putting it on the legislative agenda is sort of how we look at these big ideas, right? We keep going back to the legislature to beg and plead for certain tools that we need to do the business of the city. And it often relates to issues and items around local control and preventing this preemption, also knowing that we have a unique relationship and that we have a different level of scrutiny from Raleigh. And the use of preemption is used in a different fashion than it is used in other 99 counties from around the state. So my intent was to put this kind of macro idea on the paper, on the page, to say, hey, overall, we need to look at getting more local control. We need to change the way our relationship is back and forth, the political capital that we put into to doing the work, and the real capital that we have to doing the work. We have different items. We have items right now that relate to this, right? Are putting this, our issues around changing the minimum housing standards and other affordable housing options are issues of local control. Here's a list of some other items that we have had on our, either on our legislative agenda or things that we have said that we want more local control on. Our lack of authority for the Citizens Review Board to exercise subpoena power, our lack of authority to revise the good faith efforts and establish veteran-owned business preferences in the Charlotte Business Inclusion Program, the lack of authority to require city contractors to pay living wages, the lack of authority to enact new sources of revenue to improve local roads, the lack of authority for local governments to enact or amend ordinances related to private employment practices like living wages or working conditions or minimum wages, and other public accommodations, as was related in discrimination ordinances, so on and so forth. So what I'm suggesting is that we put this big idea on the legislative agenda. We say, hey, this is in the interest of of not just Charlotte, but the state overall. And what I would like to do is say, hey, we understand that we might not get this big change right here, right now. But here are some common sense things that we can agree on right now. We can put the 2 items that we actually have on a legislative agenda to show to folks that, hey, this is what we need, and these are the tools that we need. And what we should use this legislative agenda for is to say, okay, legislators, how do we work together, right? How do we work together to go around the state and find the type of coalitions and have the type of conversations that we need to make this big legislative change? My position is that if we don't put these big ideas down on paper, we're not going to get the change that we actually need to deal with the problems of Charlotte. So at some point in time, we have to be willing to say it and provide a common sense pathway to getting it done. I think we can do that with this item.
All right. Mr. Graham.
Mr. Fenton, how would this be received on the surface? Because what Mr. Winston said is correct, and he mentioned action items, very tangible, very narrowly tailored action item without using the words local control. So based on how it's written there, how would that be received?
It really depends upon the issue. Some of those issues are supported by some organizations, and some of those some other organizations might oppose them. Then you'll get to another issue, and you'll have an entirely new set of people on both sides of the issue, supporters and opposers. And then, of course, the same thing will happen in the General Assembly. You'll have some members either in support, they might be opposed to one of the other things on that list.
Madam Mayor, I agree with the spirit of the request. I absolutely agree with the spirit of the request. But having served there for 10 years and chairing the delegation for the last 2, it's problematic because it's not specific. It's just general, local control. And I said this the last time it was presented, and I'll say it again. The eyeballs of the reader is going to go straight to local control, and they're going to disregard all the other requests. And so I think the better approach for the council is to be somewhat deliberate. It won't get addressed in a short session at all. They're not even going to touch it. If I was the chairman of the delegation, I wouldn't even refer it to my members to do any feelers out there to see if there's support for it, because it's just the nature of the body. It's just, it's the short session. That is a complicated issue. They're not even going to take it up. The delegation will want to do something that they can deliver back to the city or the county or the towns. That's not an actionable item.
Well, that's not.
I don't
My
think he's
time.
done yet.
I'm not done yet. And so, again, I agree with the spirit of the request. I just think that as knowing the history of the relationship, knowing the work that the city has done over the last 3 years to repair bridges and hardships up there, I think as a community and as a body, we should probably play chess versus checkers, and be strategic about what it is that we want, and even if and spell it out what it is that we want, those items you list.
Plastics, textiles, concrete, organics, and then the Innovation Center. So, under the plastics program, we partnered with CATS, Coca-Cola Consolidated, Send Me On My Way, and several local partners to take a city bus that's been retrofitted and go pick up pure plastics, PET, aluminum, and also Sealed Air's bubble wrap and air pillows. And we take it directly back to Coca-Cola and Sealed Air. And what those two organizations are doing is actually taking that product and putting it back into the materials that they create. So Sealed Air is about to roll out a new product that they've designed using some of the bubble wrap and air pillow that we have supplied to them. This is a great program, a lot of community members. It's been wonderful, the education that we've had, and we've had 99.9% pure products going back to them. And this is only growing with new partnerships coming on every day, like Charlotte Motor Speedway and PNC. PNC wants us to come to every concert and collect all the bottles and cans for them. So this has been a very fun project. Tomorrow, we are rolling out 3 litter getters in partnership with Stormwater, Coca-Cola Consolidated, the city, and the county. We are putting in 3 litter getters in stormways to collect debris and trash, especially after storms. And then what's really exciting about this, they'll be cleaned out every week. All the materials will be analyzed to see what can be upcycled, what can be recycled, where it's coming from, so hopefully we can backtrack and figure out the source for this pollution and stop it before it goes into the riverways. And we'll be tracking that, so we'll have a lot of data around that. So if you want to join us tomorrow at 10 o'clock, we will be out there putting the first litter getter in. Tonight, you have this on your agenda, but this is a wood waste center. So to give you a little inside knowledge about Charlotte, as you all know, we have a huge canopy cover, and we have about 80,000 pounds of trees per day that are downed, whether it's development, storms, all of that. If a tree falls in the woods by itself, it off-gasses, and photosynthesis takes care of the CO2. If you put a big pile of trees together, all of that off-gasses into the atmosphere, and it's bad. So what we are looking to do at the old Statesville landfill is do a wood waste center where we would take all of the wood that we can manage at that site to its highest and best use, whether that's lumber, whether that's firewood, or other products that we can create at this center. So this is a big opportunity to reduce our CO2 in Charlotte. We actually could support 4 of these around Charlotte, and there are other cities around the country already calling to ask how this is going because they want to implement it in their city. The last one is the Innovation Barn. We are breaking ground next month, and we will be opening later this summer. The Innovation Barn is going to be a place where you will be able to take waste and learn to make new products. We'll have entrepreneurs there, but it's about job creation, innovation, and education and awareness. We have several partnerships already within the barn. So we have Crowntown Composting. They will start attacking the composting by using soldier flies. Very exciting. Don't worry though, the soldier flies will be contained. We'll put a camera so you can see them. We also have 100 gardens, so we'll have a hydroponic and aquaponic garden and a partnership with CMS to do field trips for that. Queen City Teaching Farm is a new business coming out of CMS where they will be doing aquaponic garden over at Garinger, and their goal is to supply all of the lettuce for CMS, which is about 7,000 pounds per week, but they will be operating out of the kitchen that was donated by Electrolux and doing teaching classes and teaching kids how to reduce food waste. So it's a very exciting program. We have a number of large businesses that are partners out there that are supplying all kinds of donations from, like I said, the kitchen at Electrolux. Philips is donating a full lighting system so that we can look at reducing our energy use by using better lighting and sensors. We have Cisco going out there with all kinds of sensor technology for Wi-Fi, Bluetooth. Everything will be enabled, all kinds of power over Ethernet. So it's going to be a state-of-the-art building and LEED certified. And then we have National Gypsum donating drywall, and Lowe's will also be a partner. Those are just to name a few. We will, like I said, be having the groundbreaking next month. You were all invited in March. And did you want to add anything to this?
So with the Innovation Barn that's going to be located next to the solid waste building out on Ott Street, the city is going to be, we're going to be retrofitting it. It's going to maintain and be our building. And Envision will be doing, as she stated, the programming and everything else. So it was a partnership where we have the building and we're doing the renovation and everything, but she's going to go in through the donations and everything else, and they're going to be doing the programming and managing it for us once it opens and it gets operational. Any questions?
All right, thank you. All right, you've got questions, Mr. Winston and Ms. Ajmira.
How have we been approaching creating, I guess, pathways for individuals or small businesses, smaller organizations to partner with us around the circular economy? For instance, kind of how we think about the micro grant program, for instance. We know that there are a lot of folks in our neighborhoods that are doing good work in this space and that want to do more good work. But if they had a bit of institutional support, they might not be 501c3s, they might not be viable business entities, for instance, but otherwise they are doing good work. What kind of pathways exist for folks within our community like this to get into this city effort around the circular economy, and if not partner with us, start building that type of institutional support so they can put real life solutions in their communities today?
So in the Innovation Barn, there will be an incubator space that doing just what you're saying. It may be small companies or individual that have an idea but don't have the tools, don't have the, what do you call the copier, the 3D printer, any kind of thing that they need in order to take it to the next level. They'll be able to come in the incubator space and actually have to be able to use some things to actually move that vision forward and possibly make it into a company and actually go out into the community.
Okay, Ms. Ajmera?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have a couple of questions, but great job, Sarah. You've been providing great leadership. If you could go back to the numbers slide, I have a couple of questions there.
The one with all the numbers?
Yes, by the numbers.
Okay. Yes.
So is this, I guess, what's the time frame of all these numbers? It's the first time I'm seeing this slide.
This is the CF.
So I think it depends on which number you're talking about, but I can just speak to a couple of them to give you some context.
Right.
So one of the first things that we did as a city when the CF was passed was develop an operations team, which has staff from across city departments, to get together and talk about what are we already doing, what can we do better, what can we build off of. So when you look at the 60-plus policies, one of the first things we did was an inventory of what are we doing and what are we working on. And so they range in things that are complete, recently completed, to in progress, to a little bit further down the line. But we're even able to create a slide like this because we started to get together and think a little bit more strategically and together about it. If you look at some of the other numbers, so electric vehicles, electric charging stations, I mean, we have those in place. But part of the purpose of having a conversation with council during the budget process is to talk about where are we going. And so some of this work is underway. A lot of this is already in place. But where are we going? I think that's a really great opportunity to continue this conversation.
Yes, I think this is good because now we have the data so that we can assess the progress we are making to meet our 2030 and 2050 goals. But if there is some sort of a progress chart or something that shows here is how we have to meet our 2030 goal. I guess how far have we come along? 10%, 20%, 30%. If we do this, this will be 10%. So we are tracking the progress because it's hard to translate this into the percentage for us to meet our goals because 2030 is just 10 years away.
Right. Definitely noted. And I will say on your council agenda this evening, we have an example where we have tracked what the Green Source Advantage program would bring to council, which is a quarter of the way towards our 2030 goal. But to your point, that's a great point with all of our work.
Okay. For the transportation, I know there was a conversation about having our enforcement vehicles going all electric. So is that included in that number, or is that a plan for?
So this number is what we have today, not what we're planning for the future. So we will be talking more about that as we're talking about the next budget cycles.
Okay, so for this budget, is there an ask for the CF?
Not, so
I'll take,
Thank you.
so, the ask is of me, so
Yeah.
what I am doing is I'm going to present you a budget that takes into account what we're doing around vehicles and buildings with the CAP, understanding that in terms of the plan, this is our first crack at it. A lot of it was gathering data.
So there will be an ask coming later as part of your presentation?
Yes.
Okay, got it. If you could go back to Wood Waste Center, I'm not sure if I understood, if you can just elaborate on that? I'm not clear on the objective there.
The process.
So, I think that was, yes, Amy.
Wood is, some of it is being processed, but a lot of it is going into piles and not being processed. So the idea here would be to take as much wood as the Statesville landfill piece that we're looking at tonight, it's about 20 acres, can handle per day, and then it will be sorted on-site to its highest and best use, whether that's furniture, lumber, firewood, or any of those items, so that it's not sitting in piles and it is being processed.
Got it.
So the problem is the CO2 being emitted from the piles of wood. We're trying to avoid that.
So is this in partnership with the county?
No, it's the city.
It's just the city?
Right,
Okay.
so what you're talking about is Compost Central, where we take the yard waste from solid
Yes.
waste. That's, that is generally mulched, but because the quality of the mulch is not that great, it tends to sit at their facility, even though they sell it at a reduced rate and give it away free, it still is not at its highest use, because there's so much of it, it just, the piles get big and be out there. So this is another component of using it, like she said, at the highest possible use, as opposed to just turning it to pure mulch.
Got it, so putting it back into the
Right.
economy, got it. For the innovation barn, Amy, thanks to your leadership, I see there have been more partners in terms of small businesses and large businesses. I think that's great. I know in 2018, I don't remember the exact time frame, when we had originally approved the funding for this innovation barn, the timeline was, timeline to open this innovation barn was sooner than what is currently been presented. So the concerns around the delay, has those been addressed, and will there be an additional ask for funding?
So those have been addressed. We came up to some problems with the building, because, the building was retrofitted, even though everybody say a horse barn, horses were stored there, it was never a barn. But it was a mechanic shop. So you had groundwater, you had ground contamination, you have a gas tank that's in the back, that's still in the ground. You have the roof that's issued, because of the way the building was used previously and what we're trying to do now, there was it was more of a challenge than what anybody, whether engineering or anybody, until you got really deep into it, could ever know until we started looking at it. And so this, after we did all that and did all the research and kind of say, hey, this could end up being a $10 million project. No, let's step back and let's see what we can do for the money that we had already budgeted. So half of the building is going to be renovated because of the fact that you have a big hole in that building that needs to be filled in. You have a lot of stuff that needs to be done, not to mention putting an AC system, an HVAC system into a building that wasn't meant for that use costs a lot of money. So that's why we're doing it in phases in order to get the best possible use. And as we get successes, then you go to the next. Instead of trying to open the whole thing and trying to deal with it all.
Okay, so in terms of this phase, initial phase, would there be additional ask for funding?
Not in this phase.
Okay.
No,
All right, I think that's, thank you.
All right, it's almost 6:30, we've got a full agenda, so we're going to let Stormwater, I'm sure Phil is so excited about leaving it. Where's my, yeah, there you guys, so we'll take that off. I will be out for a few minutes. I'm going to welcome some of our new corporate headquarter folks and go ahead and start the meeting, and I'll see you guys in a bit.